I'm a guy that's 25. Lego Star Wars is my life. I like Ryan Johnson. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here, back with another video, and today I'm going to talk about The Mandalorian, specifically why I'm not going to be watching the show anymore. If you guys have checked out the live streams, and this probably won't come as a big surprise to you, but basically, as the title says, I'm pretty much done watching The Mandalorian. Before people overreact, before people jump in the comment section and go irate, I just want to ask that you guys hear me out, listen to what I have to say, and hopefully you can at least understand in some sense why I've decided to give up on the show. The first thing I want to say just right off the bat, so people don't think I'm being overly negative, because I don't think this is an overly negative video. This is really a video based on my just personal preference and something, a principle that I am choosing to abide by. But that's simply that I did actually enjoy season 2, episode 1. I don't want people to think that I'm just hating on it, that I didn't think it was good. I feel like people kind of get the impression of me that I just hate everything in Star Wars that's not the original trilogy or the sequels. And that's not necessarily true. Like, I enjoyed this episode. I totally thought it was worth my time to watch. However, they basically just did something in this episode that I simply can't get over. Something that I am making a decision to choose to not to support moving forward. So before I dive too deeply, let me just try to lay the groundwork and help you just understand the context of this entire situation. Season 2 of The Mandalorian was obviously heavily speculated on, and it seemed like every other week leading up to this show, we were getting some news about another random character that was going to be thrown into it. Like, oh, Ahsoka's going to make an appearance, Bo-Katan, Captain Rex, like Dave Filoni's greatest cartoon characters are going to be in the show, Boba Fett might be in the show. All these people who we've come to know in other pieces of Star Wars were going to make an appearance in this show for some reason. And I found that pretty off-putting. I thought one of the big appeals to The Mandalorian is that it was its own contained story. The fact that you could just watch it and enjoy it for what it is. It didn't need to try to tie other things in Star Wars together. It didn't need to overemphasize its importance in the universe in order to feel important. It seemed like, for what it was, for its own contained story, it felt significant, it felt like it was worth watching, and I could appreciate that about it. I feel like with a lot of Star Wars stories now, you find that, like, rather than trying to create something nice and contained, it seems to find its importance in how it can relate to other parts of the universe, and I don't think that's nearly as exciting as just the idea of being able to tell a completely new story, something original, something that doesn't rely on old things, and then just being able to engage people in that way. So basically, I decided to make a rule for myself. I decided that I would watch the season. However, the moment a character is revived, the moment one of Dave Filoni's random cartoon characters make an appearance, I was going to be done with the show. My impression was just that I'm not going to continue to support a part of Star Wars that I actively don't want to see. I'm pretty actively against just throwing in familiar characters for fan service, and I'm especially against bringing characters back from the dead for fan service. So I basically made that rule, and I want to say I'm surprised, but I wasn't, because I think deep down I knew it was going to happen at some point. However, I did not expect for it to happen right out the gate. In the very first episode, we see Boba Fett at the end, obviously. Which really sucks, because I wanted to continue watching. I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a very nice episode. However, it sucked that they had to jump right into it. They couldn't help themselves. They just needed to throw Boba Fett into The Mandalorian. And then the fan reaction came back. I don't want to say that it's been 100% positive, because I think there are some people out there who feel the way I do, who don't necessarily need to see Boba Fett in the show, but it's clearly overwhelmingly positive. There are so many people who are so excited by the idea of Boba Fett returning to Star Wars alive after episode 6. I don't know how to feel about this. Like, honestly, it kind of bums me out, because, like, I want to be, you know, on the side of Star Wars that's like, yeah, like, new stuff, new characters. Yeah, let's get excited for these new stories that can be told in this universe that we claim is so expansive, this universe that we claim is so huge and is so ripe for storytelling. However, we just keep going back to the same old stuff. that kind of sucks. So I want to talk a little bit about why I am so opposed to bringing characters back, especially in Star Wars. So the revival part of it is, I just think, the worst kind of way to bring characters back. Like, it's one thing for someone to just show back up just because, like, it's annoying. Like, everyone does not have to know everyone in Star Wars, but that's something you can that's at least plausible, right? Like, Ahsoka didn't have to be in Rebels, but we never saw her die, so she was around and she could have helped out in some way. Okay, whatever. Bringing people back from the dead, I think, is just so wrong for Star Wars, because personally, I hold deaths in my franchises, in my media, pretty sacred. Like, there's a certain emotion that you feel when a character dies. Like, I feel like there should be a sense of permanence to that. There should be a sense of, yeah, that's a big deal. This person's not going to be around anymore. And I feel like you should adhere to that. I know some people bring up Force Ghosts and argue, well, it's been established from the beginning, like, oh, Obi-Wan could come back, Yoda could come back, etc., etc. But one, Force Ghosts are obviously not the person physically being there. Force Ghosts aren't just always at the forefront of Star Wars. They seem to be used pretty sporadically. And second, before Obi-Wan even died, he tells Vader, like, I'm going to become more powerful. So that's something that, you know, wasn't a retcon. They didn't just bring Obi-Wan back just because. It was established right out the gate. This is something that Jedis can do. So I'm totally fine with that, right? Like, as long as Force Ghosts aren't just excessively used, I think it's totally fine to have characters that are Jedis come back as Force Ghosts and influence and mentor someone from the afterlife. I think that's honestly a pretty nice thing about Star Wars, the fact that Jedis live this life of essentially service to others, and their reward is essentially they get to persist for eternity. Like, that's kind of a nice thing in Star Wars. There are a lot of people that are going to bring up, like, Darth Maul, for example, Darth Maul coming back and say, well, did you have a problem with that? And my answer is yes, I had a big problem with that. I did not want to see Darth Maul come back. Once again, the man was cut in half and fell down an energy chute. And apparently in canon, he was so angry he could keep himself alive, which raises so many questions on its own, right? Like, why is that then not the case for all Sith Lords? Like, why was Darth Maul especially angry? Like, could more powerful Sith Lords not also do the same thing? And if we establish that for him, like, oh, you can just be angry and still stay alive, then, like, why should we then respect any death of any other Sith Lord when we know you can just so easily bring them back by saying, oh yeah, they were just angry, that's just what kept them alive, right? A lot of people try to justify the Maul death and say, oh, it was done so well and it made him a far more interesting character, but my response to that is, at what cost? At the cost of making deaths in Star Wars not mean anything, at the cost of basically rewriting canon retroactively. My question would then be, rather than just trample over what was established before and say, no, that person didn't die in this scene, we're just going to bring them back. If you feel you have such a great story to tell with a character, does it necessarily have to be Darth Maul? Like, could Darth Maul have not just been someone else? I always bring up the point that Darth Maul could have just been Savage Opress seeking revenge against the Emperor for basically taking his brother and then, like, just throwing him to the side, seeking revenge against Obi-Wan Kenobi for killing his brother. You could have told that exact same story with Darth Maul without having to trample over canon and without having to retcon things, right? So then the only justification for it being Darth Maul is fan service. And that is just, I think, the worst possible thing that can happen to Star Wars. I don't want to make this seem like I'm talking down to Star Wars fans or that you should feel bad for being a Star Wars fan, but my impression is that Star Wars stories are best when they're not told exclusively to cater to fans. The original Star Wars had no fans, and it's the most beloved thing in Star Wars. It wasn't trying to cater to any specific person or need. It was just organically a good thing. So my question is, why not try to appeal to those things as opposed to fan service to create the next group of great Star Wars films or the next great group of Star Wars media? Like, I think one of the worst things can happen to Star Wars is letting the fandom dictate the lore. And what I mean by that is basically making a character more important or making a character persist just to satisfy fans as opposed to an actual good narrative reason for it. Darth Maul pretty much served his purpose in episode 1. There are so many villains in the prequels, and Darth Maul was just a very small part of that. However, the fans latch on to him because he looks cool and he can do some flips, and then it becomes, oh, we have to bring him back. We have to give the fans more Darth Maul. But that was never the original intent. If George Lucas wanted Darth Maul to have a super significant part in those stories, then he would have had a super significant part in those stories. So to basically say, you know what, no, screw what we did before, we can just rewrite that and people won't care because they like the character, I have big problems with that, because once again, where do we stop? Like, if some random thing catches on with fans, like, do we just say, oh, well, you know, just forget what we set up before, we're just going to retroactively make this important just because the fans like it? I will always be of the opinion that you satisfy the lore first and the fandom second. You don't let the fandom dictate the lore. I mean, even if you're not just outright bringing characters back from the dead, you're just forcing a character into a story just because the fans are familiar with them, I feel like that shrinks the galaxy. That makes everything feel so small and connected, and everything important in Star Wars is only the things that we as fans care to see on screen. I don't think that should be the case. I think that people praise Star Wars for being this amazing expansive universe, and so long as we just keep having all of these stories interconnect in some way and having everyone know everyone and everyone be involved in everything we see, we're making the universe smaller, we're shrinking the universe, and that as a fan just isn't very exciting. It honestly makes me feel kind of dumb, right? Like, God forbid we try to tell a new story, God forbid we try to get our new characters over. Let's just keep waving the same memorable things that the fans like, and that'll be enough. I don't think that's a good way for Star Wars to go. So then the justification for this is always inevitably, what if it's done well, right? Like, what if Boba Fett comes back and it's the most amazing thing ever? This actually doesn't even factor into my decision at all. I don't think that Boba Fett coming back will like unfold poorly on screen. I have faith in the writers that it'll be very interesting and maybe even exciting to watch. However, my issue with this isn't whether or not it's done well. Like, I don't say bring a character back if it's good, but if it's not good, then don't bring them back. I have a categorical objection to bringing characters back, especially from the dead, because of the principle, right? Because it makes deaths in general in Star Wars seem less important, because it is basically prioritizing the fandom over the lore, and in turn making the lore make less sense just to bring a character back. Those are issues that I have with bringing characters back, regardless of how well it's executed. The execution of it literally does not matter to me whatsoever. So people are also going to ask, Jay, don't you think this is a bit of an overreaction? And I think from the outside looking in, it might look that way, right? Like, Jay, get over it. It's such a small part of the show. There's so much more going on. And that's absolutely true. However, I've seen this so much in Star Wars, and it irritates me every single time that I see it. And I'm at the point where I just can't choose to keep supporting it. Like, this is essentially my boycott of The Mandalorian. I don't expect for this to change anything, right? Like, Mandalorian's still going to have millions of fans. Mandalorian is still going to be massively popular as it's been before. However, for me, I cannot in good conscience keep supporting the thing that I detest so much about Star Wars. But for me, I can in good conscience keep supporting the thing that I detest so much about Star Wars. And I don't think this is a crazy concept, right? If I told you there's a Star Wars book out there where Luke Skywalker has an evil clone, you might make the decision to not read that book. The book could mostly be good. It could still be an interesting book. Luke's evil clone doesn't have to be at the forefront all the time. There are probably other things in that book that you can appreciate. However, you might just make the decision, I don't want to read something that has just that one little annoying thing in it. I can choose just not to consume that media. And that's the way I'm looking at The Mandalorian. Sure, Mandalorian is probably going to be awesome. Like, I have no doubt it'll be a very enjoyable show to watch. However, I personally, as a Star Wars fan, don't want to keep supporting the things that I don't like about Star Wars. And honestly, it's kind of saddening for me. Like, I would love to be a part of this group of fans who are so excited about The Mandalorian, who are looking forward to seeing what Boba Fett might have to offer the show. However, if this is what people are getting excited for nowadays with Star Wars, like if this is the thing that Disney's going to look at and be like, look, like this is so massively popular, bringing back Boba Fett was a resounding hit. Everyone loves this thing that changed about Star Wars. That makes me very concerned about where Star Wars is going to go, right? Like if Disney looks at this as a thing that they think they need to replicate or even do more down the line, then Star Wars might literally just not be for me moving forward. That's not going to change the fact that I have the original trilogy, I have episodes 7 and 8, I have those pieces of Star Wars that I love dearly, and I'll always have those. Like nothing is ever going to change the way I feel about those films. But I want to look forward to the future. I want to look forward to what Star Wars has to offer. And if this is something that the fans want to see, if this is something that Disney thinks they need to give us, because every other thing they give us, people seem to push back on, that really concerns me as a Star Wars fan. I applaud the people out there who are totally on board with this. Like, by all means, enjoy your Star Wars, man. It's good that you guys are able to enjoy it, but this is just not what I want to see out of Star Wars. This is not where I think Star Wars ought to go. So I don't know, we'll see how things progress moving forward. But that's going to finish up the video. I really hope that gives you guys some insight into just how I'm feeling about The Mandalorian, why I decided to stop watching the show. I will still keep up with the show. Like, obviously I'm going to be doing live streams. People are going to probably want to talk to me about the show, and that's fine. I'll have other guests on who have seen it, so you guys can engage there. And I think it might be interesting for you guys to basically get my impressions of the show based on just purely hearing what happened as opposed to seeing it unfold. I think that might be kind of interesting. I also don't want people to take this video as me telling you why you should not like, enjoy, or watch The Mandalorian show. Like I said, like, I'm sure it'll be massively popular. I'm sure it'll be good. People out there will want to see it. It's just not something for me. It's not something that I care to see from Star Wars. So that's going to finish things up, guys. If you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.